So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about a couple of platforms out there, social media platforms, and the stories of how they started. They're actually very similar in nature in terms of the features, but they're pretty different in terms of how they're currently being used and, like what the current use cases are. Mm-hmm. So those two platforms that we're talking about are Twitter and Threads.
Oh, okay. So one I'm more familiar with, the other one I am not.
Which one are you more familiar with?
Twitter, but now that it's not Twitter,
been around a lot longer.
I'm not really that familiar with it.
Yeah, I guess we'll preface this up front. We're just going to call it Twitter because
no one
that's
calls
what
it
it's
X.
been called for such a long time, and just for consistency and simplicity's sake. We will reference the fact that its name has changed recently, but that's probably it. We're just going to call it Twitter.
Okay, I'm good with that.
All right. So we're going to start with Twitter because chronologically, that's what makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Twitter actually started out in 2005. It launched in mid-2005 as Odeo.
Oh,
I
never knew that.
Podcasting platform.
Oh, wow. Oh, so they were like new to the podcasting scene, or they were like on the podcast scene when it was new.
Yeah, sort of innovators in the podcasting scene.
Yeah.
They didn't last very long in that niche, though, in that market. So in the fall of 2005, Apple launched iTunes podcasting, and the founders of Odeo kind of thought it was, they shouldn't get into that game with Apple going in on it and having there was no iPhone yet even, so this was iPod days, and they were thinking like, everybody's got an iPod.
Right.
We don't want to go up against Apple.
Right.
In this market.
Yeah. Oh, so that's probably where podcast really did come from, because Apple had iPods.
Yeah.
I was right when I
you were.
hypothesized that. Okay.
So Odeo was launched by a few guys. One of them was Evan Williams. He was the CEO, and he previously founded Blogger.
Okay.
Remember Blogger? It was like one of the early blogging platforms.
I would assume. Yeah.
Obviously. So they decided to pivot the company. Evan did. And he asked the 14 employees at the time to start thinking of ideas. Basically said, we're going to get out of this podcasting game. What do you have? Like, let's all do some brainstorming and come back with some ideas. And so a couple of the other founders, actually a founder and an employee at the time, Jack Dorsey and Noah Glass, they came up with the idea for Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It was originally called Twitter, but it was spelled TWTTR.
That is so funny how they just really don't care about vowels and startups.
Well, so I think they were fashioning it after like Flickr, but Twitter.com was already taken.
By a bird or something.
I don't know what was. So they just went with Twitter at first.
Yeah.
Later, they changed the spelling and acquired the domain name. Evan Williams, the CEO, wasn't really sure about this Twitter idea at first. So it was this idea where anyone could send via text or SMS a message, and people could follow that person, and they would get the text sent to them.
Oh, interesting.
In real time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but they let a small team work on it. So Jack Dorsey, Noah Glass, and Biz Stone, they all worked on this idea together. It was really Dorsey and Glass, though, that kind of were like the masterminds behind the idea. And in March 2006, they launched the initial version of Twitter. It didn't take off like Instagram level growth, but it got some growth fairly quickly. It got a few thousand users in the first couple of months. And one of the predominant use cases today of Twitter was pretty apparent early on. So there was a small earthquake in San Francisco in August of 2006, and news of that earthquake spread quickly on Twitter.
Oh.
Even though there were only a few thousand users on it, a lot of them were in San Francisco at the time.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so then, Twitter went on to become very, one of the predominant use cases is like real-time news for current events and things like that.
Right.
So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But so something really interesting happened, and I wasn't actually aware of this backstory before doing this research. Twitter was kind of mired in controversy from near the beginning. So Evan Williams around this time, August or so of 2006, Evan Williams went to Odio's initial investors, and he basically said, "Hey, listen, we're not doing Odio anymore, the podcasting thing. We're not sure. We're kind of trying out this Twitter thing."
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of explained it to them. He said, we're not really sure how big it's going to be or what it is exactly yet. We've got about 5,000 users a few months after launching it. I'd like to offer to you to, give you your money back and make you whole on your investment. And I'm pretty sure all of them agreed, or at least most of them. And so they took their money back.
Oh.
Later, these investors, some of them said that they felt like Evan Williams was, acting in good faith. Others believe that he kind of knew they were onto something with Twitter and preferred to buy back their shares and, basically square up their cap table, get all the shares back, and kind of start over. So some of them felt like they had been conned.
Ooh, interesting. What does he? I mean, he obviously sticks to his story. That
I don't know if he's addressed it. I mean, he doesn't really have to. He didn't lie. They only had 5,000 users. I mean, maybe he had an inkling that it was going to grow. He was seeing something, but he offered them their money back. He didn't tell them they had to take it,
right?
And they did. So
right. And as an investor, you are making that decision yourself.
Yeah, it's up to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised they all took their money back.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say they all stuck with it and stayed, but
yeah. So another thing that Evan Williams did that didn't come out until later, but is kind of controversial also. He fired Noah Glass, one of the guys, basically like the lead champion of Twitter. We're not really sure exactly why he fired Noah. It seems like there may have been some personality conflicts there, but the timing and the fact that it was sort of the one who was like the most into Twitter and like really pushed for it, along with Jack Dorsey, he fired him.
Interesting.
So he didn't last very long at the company.
I wonder what Noah Glass is doing these days.
I looked him up. He's the founder of another company.
Oh, okay.
So we should talk about what Twitter is and a little bit of the backstory. So originally it started out as a 140 character max like microblogging platform.
Right.
So, I can post something. Previously, blogging platforms were very big at the time in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
This was basically a blogging platform, but it was constrained to only 140 characters. And unlike some other blogging platforms where you could have your own website, to host your blog,
right.
It was more like a centrally hosted platform. So all of the posts, or they call them tweets, are posted to the same platform.
Okay.
And can be seen in a stream. So
it was always that like newsfeed idea from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, they did increase the limit to 280 in 2017. So it's now 280 characters. And if you pay for a Twitter Blue subscription, which is like their paid service, you can actually get up to 10,000 characters now.
Oh, wow.
So I think that comes with the badge, the blue check mark, and some other perks. As Twitter has tried to increase their revenue.
Interesting. I was on Twitter early on, like when it first started, and there are a lot of reasons why I got off of Twitter, but one of them was because I couldn't keep what I wanted.
Verbose.
I'm a very verbose person, as everyone knows, and I just have a lot of thoughts, and I couldn't tweet effectively. I had more than 140 characters to say.
Yeah. Well, now you get 280 on Twitter.
Oh, maybe I'll No. Oh, wait. No.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
So, Twitter has somewhere between 350. Twitter states that they have somewhere between 350, 400 million monthly active users. There's been kind of a wide discrepancy, and it's a little controversial. Like, no one's really sure how many of those users are actually active and not bots or spam.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So they have some number of users, basically. At their peak in 2021, so their peak revenue, Twitter made about $5 billion that year in revenue, but was not profitable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
I looked at their revenue statistics. Apparently, they've had a couple of years of small profits before then, but since then they've not been profitable again.
Interesting.
Some of the main use cases of Twitter, we talked about real-time events. So that includes things like, global cultural movements like the Arab Spring. That was one of the early use cases of people using Twitter to as a form of protest. Live sporting events is another big one. Award shows is a huge one. People love to get on Twitter and tweet about, awards and slaps and things like that.
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
One slap.
Yeah. News in general, just trending news. Some people get their news from Twitter. Like I know you get your news from TikTok.
I start and then I do my research. But yes, I do get the snippets from viral things that happen for sure.
And then, another use case is just following friends, celebrities, and like internet celebrities, or like celebrities in quotes, kind of.
Yeah. That was one of the draws that got me to sign on to TikTok that was one of the draws that got me to sign on to Twitter when I first joined, was the fact that you could just easily follow a celebrity and because you couldn't do that on Facebook.
Right.
And Instagram at the time, I was still just using it for filters.
Yeah.
And so, that was like my avenue to be able to, like, I don't know, interact with somebody famous potentially.
Yep. Yeah. And eventually Twitter did support media too. So people can add photos and videos to their posts.
Right.
But, if you're thinking about it and comparing it to something like Instagram is more photo first, video first,
right?
And then the text is kind of secondary, where like you only see a snippet of it, and you have to expand it.
Yes.
Whereas Twitter is text first.
Yep.
That's what they give the prime, or did give the prime real estate to, and then the videos and photos don't get quite as much engagement on Twitter as they do on something like Instagram or TikTok.
Right. But yeah, you don't need that though, because you're literally like saying the headlines or saying the thought that's out there. Right.
So I just wanted to talk about a little bit of the controversy that has happened around Twitter in its lifespan of almost 20 years now. One big thing is misinformation. There's been a lot of misinformation spread on Twitter, a lot of accusations that the algorithm sort of facilitates that spread of misinformation, and that Twitter hasn't done enough to stop the spread of misinformation or disinformation on the platform.
Interesting.
And then over the years, there's also been some controversy around censorship on the platform, people being censored or blocked or banned from the platform. And then on the other side, lack of censorship. So I was
just going to say like that. Those are two very contradictory things.
Yeah.
People saying that there's like fake news being spread, and then people saying that there's too much censorship.
Yeah.
So something's happening correctly. It's just the other side's not really accepting of it.
It's not easy running a social network.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're always kind of in the crosshairs, and in a lot of sense, you can't win.
Yeah.
You're gonna piss off some people if you ban somebody, and you're gonna piss off other people if you don't.
Right.
So, right. That's just kind of the game on social networks. And for that reason, people who run social networks, CEOs of social networks, are a lot of times not the most well-liked people. There's always concerns about privacy,
right.
user privacy and data privacy. There's this misinformation stuff. So there's a lot to deal with. You're constantly going before Congress,
right.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump ahead a little bit.
Okay.
We'll call it the Elon Musk era of Twitter.
Sorry. When you say era now, all I think about is Taylor Swift, and it's like Twitter's Elon Musk era. That's like his Reputation era.
We'll have to, is that Reputation? That would be the album?
Yes. Yeah. When she turned like kind of bad.
Oh. Okay. So we'll walk through a quick timeline of Elon's like interest in buying Twitter through the eventual acquisition of Twitter. So Elon had issues with the way that Twitter was being run, and he's been a huge tweeter for a long time. Big fan of using the platform, although not necessarily a big fan of how the platform is run.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he wanted to buy Twitter to help humanity improve free speech.
What a noble cause.
Yeah, what a noble purpose. So in April 2022, on April 14th of 2022, things moved kind of quickly here. Elon, after kind of being thwarted in a hostile takeover of Twitter, he offered to buy Twitter for $44 billion.
Right, which is like chump change for him.
I mean, that's still a lot of money, even for him. But like, yeah, it's. I mean,
he had it.
Yeah. So it was above the trading price of the stock. It was a decent offer. And on April 25th, the board of Twitter accepted Elon's offer.
Wow.
On May 13th, so only a couple weeks later, Elon tried to back out of the deal. So I'm not sure why. So, the question arises, was this just a publicity stunt gone wrong? There were some things going on with the economy at the time. Did he just say, oh, maybe this isn't the best idea right now? Was he just trying to make it a big thing? And so he said, oh, maybe I'll back out and that'll create more media attention. Like, he's that type of guy. Like, he likes the media. He likes to dominate the media cycle. So you never really know exactly what's going through this guy's head.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think you could make sense of it from what I'm understanding.
No, I don't think so. So anyway, there was some legal back and forth. Twitter sued Elon for trying to back out of the deal. Elon, so the day before it was supposed to go to trial, Elon said, okay, I'll buy Twitter. And they closed the deal on October 28th. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Whew. So now that we've gone through like a brief history of the transaction itself, let's do just a brief history of like some other crazy stuff that has happened around the Twitter sphere.
Yeah.
In the last year and a half or so since Elon
so much has happened.
Took over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So early on, Elon fired thousands of people from Twitter.
Oh, yes.
He said basically it had gotten a little too fat. Like I said before, it wasn't profitable.
Right.
They needed to cut back. He wanted to, turn it around, make a profit at all costs. And he also instituted, we talked about this in an earlier episode when we featured.
We had our hot mom of the week who used to work for Twitter. It was Esther.
Esther Crawford, yeah. So she was the, I think, head of product for Twitter at the time.
Yes.
And Elon instituted this like really hardcore like no work-life balance, basically, like mandated long hours. Some people were sleeping in sleeping bags at the office, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Basically trying to like squeeze every minute of your day into Twitter to, maximize profitability.
I do wonder, is there data that said that worked?
Tons of people left, and
right.
Twitter is where Twitter is right now.
Right.
So I don't think you could find any data to say that had a positive effect on Twitter.
Yes. But even if people had stayed and like they had these extra hours to like actually work, I doubt that productivity would have skyrocketed like as much as he probably wanted it to. Yeah. Regardless of like who stayed and who didn't.
He also changed the name of Twitter to X. We foreshadowed this a little bit ago. In July 2023. In doing so, killed off one of the strongest brands in the social media world, definitely, but just in the world in general, like with the little bird.
Just gonna say it's such a recognizable icon.
Yeah.
Like when I see that X, I don't even like think twice about what it is because I don't think it's anything important, and then I realize, oh, that used to be Twitter.
Yeah. No. Like, I think the initial reaction from everybody was like, is this a joke? Like, this seems like a joke. Like,
yeah, right. Everything he's doing sounds like a joke.
So when they changed the name of Twitter to X, there was a guy who actually had the X username on Twitter for like 16 years, and Elon stole that from him, which, in the terms, they are allowed to do that. But
really?
Also not the nicest thing to do.
Right.
They didn't compensate him for it like monetarily or anything
Aw.
either. So
Poor guy.
yeah, it's just something that happens. But like, yeah, I mean, certainly not an act of goodwill.
Yeah.
Another thing. So Elon said he took over Twitter to protect free speech. He has banned journalists from Twitter who cover Elon and in a negative light, have said some negative things about Elon. So people can make their own judgments about.
Just doesn't sound so free over there.
There's also he is protecting some speech on the platform, though. There has been an increase in hate speech on the platform since Elon took over Twitter, and that has caused advertisers to leave Twitter in droves.
Yeah.
Because they've said they don't want their content appearing alongside hate speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of it from Twitter users, some that they've called harmful speech from Musk himself. So
wow.
So, as far as wanting to turn Twitter around, that hasn't really happened. I mean, it's turned in a direction. I wouldn't say, necessarily in the right direction. In September, Elon said he's looking at a plan to charge all users of Twitter.
Hear that, yeah.
So all of these things, these crazy things that have been happening the last couple of years at Twitter form the backdrop for the launch of Twitter's biggest rival now, called Threads.
Okay, yeah. I can see why Threads was like, hold my beer.
Yeah. So, I mean, could there have been a better time to launch a platform that competed with Twitter?
No,
like,
it's definitely burning a little bit to the ground, and this is a good time to come up with, unless, I mean, here I am thinking, unless like Elon's playing some long game that we don't know about, like he's like trying to like burn this to the ground because there's something else. Maybe he's behind Threads.
So Threads is a product of Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So that's definitely not the case. I know that was a joke, but I think I mean, a lot of people speculate that Elon has some other intentions here, right? Like he's clearly not acting in the best interest. Yeah, like a rational, like he's just not running it like a business that he wants to grow.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing, but nobody knows what he's doing. But, maybe he does have some sort of long game. And who knows where Twitter will be in a couple years. Like, he could change course and whatever. We'll see how it goes. But this takes us to Threads. So Threads launched July 5th, 2023. It quickly became the fastest growing app in history.
Oh, wow.
In only 5 days, 100 million users registered for Threads.
Oh, okay. Everyone's like, I need a place to go.
Well, that's part of it. But also, they had the smart strategy of sort of coupling it with Instagram. So like it's its own app separate from Instagram, but you need an Instagram account to join Threads.
Oh.
And you can, there's a link from Instagram into Threads. So a lot of people signed up because they saw, what's this new Threads thing in Instagram? And they joined Threads.
So your username in Threads is the same as your
Mine
Instagram?
is. I don't know if I think you might be able to change it in Threads. I'm not positive about that, but mine is the same. Not all of those users stayed active, of course. And there was a lot of news about in the the months following that, like they lost a lot of those initial active users because there were a lot of users from Instagram or just from all the press that it received when it launched that signed up and then weren't really just didn't start using it.
Right.
So but there are a lot of users that have come over from Twitter, and there's a big set of the subset of the population on Threads that talks about Twitter and why they came to Threads, and we'll get into sort of the differences as we go along here. But so just a little bit about like what Threads is. Threads allows you to post up to 500 characters, same sort of model as Twitter, where there's a following model. It's a text first platform, like Twitter. It does have photos and videos as well.
Okay.
I think about it like this. Like if you follow somebody on Instagram and you want to hear more about what they think rather than and what they're reading and that sort of stuff, rather than like things that they do and like pictures that they take. You might follow them on Threads. But some people, some of them may not be the same people you follow on Instagram, because maybe you don't want to know what the people on that you follow on Instagram think. Maybe there's a different set of people on Threads that you want to follow.
I definitely see each social media platform for a different like interest in my life. I know not everybody is like that, but like, yeah, no, I look at it that way too. So some of the key differences and features between Threads and Twitter. One is that character limit, 500 versus 280. It's not, I mean, it's almost double, but like that's not a major difference, right? Like you do get some more characters. Twitter has DMs currently. Threads launched without them, but interesting.
We'll likely soon have them. They launched pretty quickly. They launched an MVP, or like minimum viable product. Like they took that to the extreme. Very bare bones. I think they're going to have them. They just haven't released it yet. They've been releasing features very quickly though. So we'll talk about some of those.
Interesting. So I would assume though that people interact with each other more on the public platform, which then gets other people more engaged. And so that might actually be a good thing to like just develop and grow engagement within the users, because they can like see that everyone else. And whereas if you're DMing like kind of privately, it kind of doesn't really look like there's anything happening, so you're not really going to like engage as a third party user. I
mean, that could be, we'll talk a little bit about some anecdotal evidence of like differences in engagement in a little bit too, but another difference is there's no hashtags on Threads currently.
What are all the weddings going to do?
So it doesn't currently support hashtags. I don't know if it may eventually, or it may have some different type of, way to keyword a post. And there's no trending news yet.
Okay.
On Threads. But as I mentioned, the Threads team is shipping new features fast. So some of the things that have changed since. So I joined Threads within like the first week that they launched. Some of the changes that I've seen, and I'm only going to cover a few of them. Some are the algorithm updates. So initially their algorithm, it wasn't that great at delivering the type of content that you wanted to see. And they've made some tweaks to that, but also just the more that you use and interact and engage on Threads, it learns who you mute, who you block, who you like, what posts you comment on, like that sort of stuff. And it feeds you more of that stuff. Right. I think there's still some tweaks there, because it's some users have said it feels like, oh, if I accidentally look at a post, I'll start to get a ton of, other posts like that. And I didn't like that. I didn't necessarily like that one. I just needed to click into it to see what it was, basically, or I wanted to look at that user to see like what else they posted, that sort of stuff. This one's kind of cool. So recommendations of users to follow. So initially, I noticed that a lot of the users, the suggestions of like, you might like this user, were users that weren't active on Threads. Really, like they hadn't even posted anything. So I actually sent I just posted something on Threads and I said, anybody else notice this? And I got a direct response from a Threads engineer who said, we've actually, thanks for like letting us know that we've been working on that. Cause I sent a screenshot and I said like 3 out of the 4 people you guys recommended aren't like active, basically. And I just suggested like, hey, maybe like filter it out so that it's just people who are active, because I don't want to follow people who are not. Right. And so I noticed within like 2 days of that, I was only getting active people for suggestions. So no, I think they made a change to their recommendation algorithm. Content search is another thing that they rolled out since launching. They didn't have that when they launched. So you could search users, but you couldn't search content. So that's available now.
Do you categorize your own content? Like when you sign up, do you say like, I'm so-and-so and like my content is going to center around tech? Or
well, you have a description, like you have a bio, and you can put some in there. That's what people, if they actually make it to your profile, they'll look there and see what you post about. But then it's more so just your posts. Like they'll look at some recent posts and see what you post about.
So like the algorithm kind of puts you in a certain like category.
Yeah, based on it learns what you post.
Okay.
And like that, those topics basically.
I'm like trying to think of like when I sign on, I'm gonna be like the most random, like chaotic person. Like, good luck algorithm trying to put me in a box.
See, I wouldn't recommend that if you're trying to get followers.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm trying to be my own person on Threads.
All right. Well, do what you want.
I'll do me.
They also added the ability to edit posts, which they didn't have initially. You have up to 5 minutes to edit a post. After that, you can't. So
Interesting.
Yeah, they don't want you to. Because comments can happen fast on these things, and they don't want you changing the meaning of your post after you've already had some engagement on it.
Okay.
So it's meant as a way to correct typos, which is another thing I asked for, because I was like, listen, I you end up having to delete the thing, and then
I fat thumbs.
Yeah, and then sometimes you already had comments on it, and you're like, I don't want to get rid of my comments, so you just live with the typo.
Oh, tragic.
Yeah. And then another feature that they recently added is you can actually do voice messages on Threads now. So you can, instead of typing, you can talk into the phone, and it will record your voice and do an automatic transcription of your voice to text. So it'll show the text and the voice. Yeah,
I like the accessibility piece of it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of cool too, because like you don't know what these people sound like. That you're like after a while you start reading from the same people over and over again, and you don't know what they sound like. And then all of a sudden, like I got hit with one the other day, and I was like, I had no idea this guy was British. And it was like a surprise British accent. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Oh.
So they have built a lot of features. They haven't necessarily built all of the features that people are asking for yet, which they've only been around for a few months. It's like makes sense, but some people are very angry about this.
Oh,
so
geez.
yeah, because people get angry about things.
Yes.
So one of them is trending news. A lot of people do see Threads as an alternative to Twitter, and a lot of them are saying, well, I have to go back to Twitter because they do trending news still. If Threads did that, I would just stay here. But Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram and Threads, has said basically they don't want to rush into that game. It's too important. There's too much risk involved in that feature, and the platform is too young and nascent to rush into that. Basically, it's too important that they get it right. So even though people are really clamoring for that feature and that use case on Threads, Meta doesn't want to just build something that becomes Twitter, where it's full of misinformation, and they're amplifying news that shouldn't be amplified, that sort of stuff.
It's hard when like the news kind of is involved, because that it just brings up like a whole nother layer of like misinformation and vetting and things like that.
Yeah. I alluded to this, but one of the cool things about the platform is that the engineers and product people are very active on the platform. So I probably follow dozens of them, and they post about new features. They post about anything, just like they're normal people, so just like a normal person. But they will often interact with your posts and comments. They take feature suggestions. They respond to journalists. There's actually recently been sort of I don't know if I'd call it a migration, but like a big welcoming of all these new journalists to Threads, because I think they feel like they might not be safe on Twitter necessarily. Or like, their content, they could be blocked at any time if they say the wrong thing about the wrong person, even if it's truthful. So there's been some growth, of people coming to Threads for the new features, and the community that exists over there. And I do want to talk a little bit about some of the differences between Threads and Twitter as far as, non-features, but like more like cultural stuff. So Twitter has long had a reputation of being kind of like hardcore and like cutthroat and like, and trollish. Like people troll each other over there.
Yeah,
like
there's
on
a lot of
Twitter.
Keyboard warriors. That just like hide behind their keyboards and say mean things. Yeah,
and even people who don't do that exclusively, it seems like it's kind of just fun to dunk on people on Twitter.
I mean, there's a whole segment on like the late night shows called Mean Tweets. So like people don't mind being mean on Twitter.
Yeah. So that's not really the case on Threads at all yet. So
please make it a nice place, guys. Like,
yeah.
don't ruin this for us.
No, the culture on Twitter, the culture on Threads is very different. So eventually, like, you're still going to get some trolls. Like, there are some people. I think I've had to block one person in the last 3 months or 4 months that I've been on. What is it? Yeah, 3 months on Threads. Huh?
Already?
One person.
I don't know.
No, that is like nothing for the number of people that I've interacted with and for the number of posts that I've made. Yeah. So it's very easy to mute or block people. So you can mute if you just don't want people's posts to appear in your feed because it's not kind of your thing. Or you can block and report people if it's actually inappropriate or, you know, they're just like the person I blocked, it wasn't inappropriate. They were just being kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you don't need that.
Yeah. Somebody else was like, just block that guy. Like, you know, somebody else was supportive. He's like, I don't know why he's being a jerk in my comments. So he blocked him too.
Yeah.
One example of just like sort of how nice people are on Threads is, so I posted a video for this podcast actually that I had edited a bit. And I said, you know, I want to get some feedback on this, sort of new to, you know, I've created some videos, but want to get feedback on like how I can make this better. And I got probably 10 different users responded with feedback on how to improve it. And they were all super nice and constructive. Like a couple of them were even like, I feel bad even like giving constructive feedback on Threads, but you know, one thing I'd say is you might want to add subtitles or something like super. Yeah. It was just like a nice thing. Right. Like you clearly didn't have to preface it with that, but like it was just a nice. So it's just a difference in culture.
Yeah, yeah.
And you see, like whenever, like sometimes people will just post things like, "Hey, all the new users on Threads," because sometimes there'll just be a barrage of new users coming from Twitter or whatever, and they're like, "This is kind of how things work here." Yeah. it's a little different. So another thing which you kind of mentioned earlier could be the case is that there, anecdotally, a lot of users have said that they're seeing more engagement on their posts on Threads than they do on Twitter, even with a much smaller following currently on Threads. So when you start on Threads, you're starting over basically, right? So you might have accrued 50,000 followers on Twitter in the last 15 years. And on Threads, you have to start at 0. Yeah. Although it is easier to build if you had a lot of Instagram followers too.
Right.
So a lot of people have, you know, they might only have, like, people have given examples. They have 2,000 or 3,000 followers on Threads, and they had 20,000 or 30,000 followers on Twitter, and they're seeing more engagement on their posts on Threads than they are on Twitter. Like, they would post the same thing on both platforms and compare.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Does that have anything to do with like I guess how it was developed? Like,
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say exactly why. Part of the reason could be, you know, you've got a lot of fake accounts and bots and spam on Twitter. Right. And it could just be, you know, it's still early days at Threads. Like, people are
more engaged.
Yeah, they might just be more engaged right now. I mean, also people aren't as mean.
Right.
You know, maybe people are more likely to engage if they're not afraid people are just going to be jerks to them.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the people who sign on early are the ones that want to use it and are enthusiastic about actually using it for the purpose that it is, rather than being a troll. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And that's true. You still have a lot of early adopters on Threads.
Yeah.
And they're more likely to be active users, where you might have, maybe you have a lot more passive users on Twitter who, and there is data that supports that. Like, a large percentage of the tweets on Twitter come from a very small percentage of the population on Twitter. So a lot of people aren't tweeting very much.
Right. Right.
Just because we're sort of wrapping up the Threads segment, I don't know if this has been evident. I think it has, but I am on Threads.
Yes.
I am Tony.coms on Threads. If anybody listens to the podcast and wants to try it out or is already on Threads, shoot me a message. There's no DMs, but you can just, you know, write a post and tag me. You can @ me and let me know you listen to the podcast, and I'll make sure to follow you back.
Yeah, and I'm going to join too. So you do that to me as well.
You'll be @ Maymosa?
Well, if I can.
If nobody's stolen your...
Well, that's the cool thing. Like, if I'm able to keep my Instagram username, then absolutely. That was one of the things. I was always so late to, like, all of the other accounts that you can sign on. So like somebody always took mimosa.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to do it right now.
Before this goes airs and
Yeah.
people just
Yeah.
I don't know if they hold it for you for a certain amount of time or what. So yeah, check it out. But
Okay.
the next thing I wanted to talk about, it seems like Elon Musk might be the best thing that's ever happened to Mark Zuckerberg's image, like his public image, which is crazy. So if you think about Mark
Right.
Zuckerberg, like he's in the past, he's been a little bit of a controversial founder himself, you know, starting with the very founding of Facebook and the Social Network movie.
Right.
You know, there was some controversy there with the Winklevoss twins and Eduardo Saverin and, you know, just whose idea it was and that sort of stuff. Then, you know, there's all the privacy stuff at Facebook and the reasons that Zuckerberg has been, you know, called to Congress to testify a bunch of times.
Yep.
People see Facebook as kind of, you know, not the most trustworthy of platforms, like using your data in different ways and, you know, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And also he's just kind of, you know, a lot of people see him as like just this emotionless kind of nerd.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
right.
Not me. Like I've been a Zuckerberg fan.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his faults like we all do, but like
No one's
he's in the
perfect.
public eye. Like,
yeah.
But now he's like the anti-Musk, like anti-Twitter, which it means he's rational. Like he's anti-hate speech.
Yeah.
He's also, you know, like I don't think people knew this before. I didn't really know how fit he was before. He's fit and he's kind of like a badass. Like now people are seeing him in a light that like they never saw him in before. And that's all thanks to Elon. So in June 2023, Elon challenged Zuck to a cage match.
Yes. Whatever happened with that?
Well, so I don't know if Elon realized this at the time, but Mark Zuckerberg has been taking like MMA lessons for years.
Right.
And I mean, maybe he did, but maybe Musk knew this, but he's very fit. He's won some competitions. Like,
oh, I didn't realize he's won competitions.
yeah,
Wow.
like he's good at this.
Yeah. I knew he was like an MMA fighter. I didn't know like how involved.
He's probably like my height though. Like he's a shorter guy. Like Elon's probably got like 100 pounds on him or something like that. But Elon is not in shape. Like doesn't take care of himself. So like Zuckerberg was like, just tell me when. Like let's set this up. And Elon did this thing where he said like, oh, we'll live stream it on X. Like I'm on my way to your house or something like that. And it just became this kind of joke to Elon. And so it's now been written off. Like Elon kind of backed out.
Just like the Twitter deal.
Yeah, exactly. He tried to back out, like just like the Twitter
sounds like
deal.
the type of person that just like, you know, talks a big game, and then when somebody actually like, you know, calls him on it, he's like, just kidding.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. So while Elon has been like the best thing for Zuckerberg's image and reputation, I think buying Twitter has been like the worst thing for Elon's reputation.
Right.
And his public image. Like,
yeah.
So this whole spat with Zuckerberg where Elon came out on bottom, like Zuckerberg came out on top, like, the whole hate speech thing and, you know, not like refusing to block that sort of content on Twitter. All the, you know, advertisers leaving Twitter, profits decreasing, you know, revenue decreasing. There's just this public perception that now, like, does Elon know how to run this company? And it's like, whereas before he was seen as this like kind of quirky, weird guy, but like super smart and like knows how to run a business.
Yeah. I mean,
and now
Tesla's.
Yeah, exactly. He's got Tesla, he's got SpaceX.
Yeah.
Now it's like this one's most in the public image and all of, you know, the public eye and all of his decisions and
because of all the fumbles that he makes. And honestly, though, I do think that it's because he jumped into acquiring Twitter on a whim. I'm sure the other businesses that he is successful in, it wasn't like that.
Yeah, well,
and he actually put thought into
a social
it.
media business is a very different type of business. Like his other businesses are much, call them like more hard businesses. Like, you know, he's developing rockets and electric cars that are self-driving. Like these are different types of challenges.
Yeah.
This one, like he's much his personality is much more in it because because it's a social media platform.
Yeah. That's interesting though. I do feel, I wonder if he's not doing so great because it's a personality thing, and his other businesses are just more like
Technology plays. Yeah, like pure
data and numbers.
Yeah, hard tech.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But I don't think it's been I don't know anyone who would look at it objectively and say that either this move has been good for a good business move or a good public image, like a good business move for Twitter, a good public image move for Elon, or a good business move for Elon's other businesses.
Yeah.
Because I know, like I've seen, there have been many a Tesla owner looking to dump their Tesla or, not buy a Tesla in the future because of this whole charade or whatever is going on. And it's just like, if you're the CEO of a company, your job, like ideally you're going to be a net positive on the business, you personally, which is probably not going to happen for most companies because, most people don't even know who the CEO is of the businesses that they support. So at the very least, you should be net neutral on like customers buying decisions.
Right.
And I would say Elon hasn't even done that since taking over Twitter. Yeah. So the question still remains, can Threads be successful though? Like, can it become a successful business? Can it become a successful social media platform? I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
They are, it's hard to, they're doing something that other companies haven't historically done very well at, which is start a social media startup within an existing company. Mm-hmm. Google has tried this a number of times and failed every time. I remember Google Plus. They've had a few attempts at.
Yeah, what was Google Plus?
It was their attempt at like a Facebook, like a connecting your friends social network. Yeah. It never took off. Like nobody. I mean, there's others that I can't even. I think one was called Orkut or something like that, where it was something similar earlier than Google Plus that didn't last. Also, companies that acquire social networks, like when Twitter acquired Vine, Vine died within like a couple years after being acquired by Twitter. It's just a hard thing to do. Facebook has had a much better track record than most companies at doing this. So they acquired Instagram. Instagram is doing wonderfully. They acquired WhatsApp. Same story there. So, if any company can do this sort of thing, it might be Facebook.
Yeah, right.
But, if you look at Twitter, Twitter's not profitable after almost 20 years.
Right.
It's got a few 100 million users, maybe are active. That's not that big compared to an Instagram or, a Facebook where there's like billions of users. So the question is like, what's the total addressable market of a tool like that? For advertisers, which has been the main business model, what's the appetite for advertising? Like, there's not a ton of businesses where Twitter is like their primary ad strategy. I mean, there are some, but like the major businesses are, they'd much rather advertise on something like Instagram.
Yeah, right.
Or longer form content. It's harder to slip in an ad. In
a tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I feel like if they want to be successful, they have to do something that sets themselves apart from being associated with Twitter. Because there's still people that are like, oh, this is like the new Twitter, and I didn't really like Twitter, or like, look at how Twitter failed. Yeah. This one's just going to fail as well. They need to do something that sets themselves apart from that while still maintaining like, the core of just like information sharing.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the tightrope that they're walking, I feel like, is like they're trying to build a platform that has its own identity and purpose and use cases. But at the same time, they're trying to court Twitter users who want Twitter-like features, and they're going to have to balance those two sides. They're going to have to, they and the users over time, the culture of Threads, will have to figure out exactly what Threads is, what its main use cases are. Will it become the destination where, on Monday Night Football, everybody's, on Threads and, if there's a big touchdown during the Super Bowl or,
Right.
whatever, or Taylor Swift wins her 300,000th, what is it, Grammy or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the right award show?
Yes, she wins
Okay.
Grammys. Yes.
Are people going to be talking about it on Threads in real time?
Right.
Because right now there aren't a ton, like that's not a major use case.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the content doesn't get surfaced in the same way that it does
Right.
on Twitter. So
Right.
those are some questions.
Yeah. And that is what I liked about Twitter. And that is one of the reasons, again, why I signed up for Twitter, because I liked the live tweeting of shows. Like, I remember I would like live tweet The Bachelor. I would live tweet. I remember I used to live tweet Scandal.
I remember that.
And one of the actors, Huck.
Yeah.
He tweeted me back, and I thought that was like the coolest thing.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm famous.
Yeah, I mean a lot of people like that use case
Yeah.
of Twitter.
And sometimes when I miss an episode, I used to kind of go back, and I could like search the hashtag of like The Bachelor.
Yeah.
And I could see everything that happened in The Bachelor on that episode, like on Twitter. But now I can't do that. They like make me have an account if I want to like look at tweets.
Oh yeah, I forgot Twitter did that. So you
It was
can.
annoying.
I think that was something that Elon instituted too. So you can there's no more public website for Twitter. You have to be logged in. You have to be authenticated
Which
first.
actually, I do like that now, because one of the reasons that I did get off of Twitter was because, like, when you Googled my name, you could see my tweets, and they were like brainless thing, because I was live tweeting like silly shows, and I just didn't want that to just like be my persona.
Yeah.
But now it is. But I just, so I kind of got off of that because I was like, oh, it's too public.
Yeah. Well, so, I've been on Threads for 3 months. I've seen a great deal of engagement on my posts. I started at 0. I don't have a big Instagram following because I haven't been very active on Instagram for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've already got over 1,200 followers on Threads. I think I have 100 and something on Instagram. So I wasn't drawing from that crowd.
I was gonna say, is that your most followers or friends?
So I had about 1,000 on Twitter too. I was never a power user of Twitter, but like a lot of those aren't, I don't think, real followers. But like my engagement on Threads is way higher than on Twitter. Like I've had, even with only 1,200 followers, I've had posts that have had maybe 100 likes and 80 comments, like that sort of type engagement.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. One thing I will say, as a product manager myself, for people who either already use Threads or want to use Threads, remember it's a platform that's only a few months old. When Twitter launched, I don't know if everybody remembers the fail whale, but there was this infamous whale that Twitter would post every time its site went down, which was for the first, 5 years of Twitter.
Oh my gosh,
was like almost daily. There was this
Yeah.
fail whale. It just became this huge like meme. And, Threads hasn't had any of those sorts of issues yet. It does have the luxury of being run by Meta, which has, tons of resources already.
Right.
But, it still has a limited number of engineers, and they're trying to build it in a way that will be successful long term. So be respectful, ask for, like, I've given feedback to the team, and you're not going to get anywhere being aggressive or being a jerk, especially on a community like Threads.
Yeah.
Like, just say like, hey, I'd love this use case. Would love to see if you guys are thinking about something like this. You'll figure out pretty quickly who some of the engineers are, who, Adam Mosseri is the head of Threads and Instagram. He's very active on there.
Oh, was he the one that responded to you?
No, I think he liked one of my posts, but no, some of the engineers have responded
cool.
to things that I've posted.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, I'm sure I've left things out. I've left out details. This is the first story, like sort of news story that we've covered that's like in the current like news cycle.
Right.
So like, we started with the launch of Twitter 17 years ago or whatever, and we made it all the way up to current day basically with Threads and what's going on. So I'm sure I left out details. We usually only do about an hour episode. There's so much more to this story, but and clearly, this is one case where I'm a little biased.
Yeah. Just gonna say, yeah.
So, take that with a grain of salt as well. If you love Twitter and you don't see any of the hate and the vitriol and, all that stuff that we talked about, keep using your Twitter and go for it. Give Threads a shot. Follow me. I'll follow you back if, message me that you listen to this show, and, I'll give you a follow. And
don't be a troll.
Yeah, just don't be a troll.
Yeah.
Just be a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's have a kindness community.
And just let me know what you think of this episode, of the podcast in general. Reach out. I am at Tony.coms. May will be at Maymosa, hopefully, by the time that you listen to this. And if for some reason somebody else already took it, we'll figure out something else.